Hello, I'm Trilissa Morrow, and my component is nutrition. And I want to talk about why we should eat a plant-based diet. This is Introduction to Lifestyle Medicine, Nursing 728A. So how do I define nutrition? Nutrition is the fuel that drives the whole system. We need to take time to evaluate our food and remember that even small improvements done regularly multiply our health benefits many times over. Research has shown that if we're consistent in what we do, it's important that a good diet on our health and our energy levels. It also increases our longevity. My target audience is general population and just overall moderation. We need to eat more veggies. And this is why I think we should eat a plant-based diet. So the background to the problem would be rising costs in healthcare, spread of obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. We have an ever-increasing body of evidence to support the health advantages of a plant-based diet and the nutrition. There's a need for guidance on implementing the practice of a plant-based diet. Practitioners are looking for cost-effective ways, more efficient ways to improve healthcare outcomes and to assist and support our patients to adopt healthy lifestyles. So what does a plant-based diet look like? Well, for vegans, they want to omit all animal products, specifically meat, seafood, poultry, eggs, dairy products. The same goes for a raw vegan, but they want to make sure all their foods, they exclude them except for temperatures greater than 118 Fahrenheit. Lacto-vegetarians, they eliminate eggs, meat, seafood, poultry, but they include milk products. Ovo-vegetarians omit meat, seafood, poultry, and dairy products, but they include eggs. Lacto-ovo-vegetarians include meat, seafood, poultry. They include eggs and dairy products. Mediterranean. This is a Mediterranean diet. It's comparable to a whole food diet, which we'll talk about in a minute, but they have plant-based diet, but it allows small amount of chicken, dairy, eggs, and red meat a couple times a month. They have fish and olive oil, and they encourage that, and fat's not limited. Now, the whole foods plant-based low-fat diet supports plant foods in their whole form, especially vegetables, fruits, legumes, and seeds, even nuts, but in smaller amounts. For maximal health benefits, this diet limits animal products, and their total fat is generally limited. So the recommendations from Creation Health, they want you to be a wise consumer. Don't believe everything you hear or what you read. You want to ask some critical questions when claims are being made concerning food and dietary practice. You want to focus on a balanced diet. Eat a variety of foods made in different ways, some raw, some cooked. Don't be fooled by the latest trendy diet plans. And remember, food is fuel for our bodies. The closer the food is to its natural state, the better it is for our body. We want to consume a variety of nutrient-dense foods and beverages while choosing foods that limit the intake of saturated and trans fats, cholesterol, added sugars, salt, and alcohol. You want to maintain a healthy body weight by balancing your calories from your foods and beverages with calories expended. Consume the right amount of fruits and vegetables daily. You want to choose from a variety of foods and vegetables each day, and you want to stay within your energy needs. So around 2 cups of fruit and about 2.5 cups of veggies for a 2,000 calorie a day diet. Select from all of the vegetable subgroups, dark green, orange. You want some legumes, some starchy and some other vegetables several times a week. Eat at least half of your grains from whole grains. You want to consume less than 10% of calories a day from fatty acids that are saturated and less than 300 milligrams a day of cholesterol. You want to keep your trans fatty acid consumption as low as possible and keep your total fat intake between 20 to 35% of your total calories, with most of your fats coming from polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, fish, nuts, vegetable oils. Limit your intake of fats and oils that are high in saturated and trans fatty acids. You want to choose fiber-rich foods like vegetables and whole grains often, and consume less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. So that's going to be about a teaspoon of salt, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's enough. So all that talk about plant-based foods, what do you benefit from it? Fiber. So dietary fiber is found only in plant-based foods. You get fruits, vegetables, legumes, peas and beans, whole grains, nuts and seeds. The recommended daily fiber intake is 20 to 35 plus grams a day. So some benefits of this: decreased emotional distress, decreased cognitive difficulties, and decreased violent behavior. Increased brain function. It prevents cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. This also satisfies your appetite without excess calories, and it lowers your glycemic index. It also slows down digestion and aids in elimination. It's associated with lower serum cholesterol levels, and it decreases your blood pressure. So some current literature on why we should eat a plant-based diet. Hardiman evaluated plant-based diets and how they contain many components that reduce inflammation, so which can reduce the risk of developing cardiac disease, cancer, and diabetes. Hardiman focused her study on the reduction of cancer risk by concentrating on dietary components and the relationship with suppression of inflammation. So this one really excited me, and I'll try not to get too rattly. She summarized the dietary component of walnuts that have been shown to reduce cancer risk and could reduce cancer growth and development. Part of the mechanism for the anti-cancer benefit of walnut was suppressing the activation of NF-κB, which I couldn't tell you where it's at, but I know what it does. So I'm going to try to explain this diagram. This was tumor incidence, and these were glands per tumors per mouse. So this is for corn oil, these CO. This is for walnut oil. The mothers and the baby pups were fed a diet of corn oil and walnut oil. This was the mothers, and this was the baby pups. So if they were fed this over 2 years, this was the mother, pup, 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 pup. And as you can see, as they were fed this, the ones that were consistently fed the walnut oil and the ones that had corn oil, the mother, and the pup that had walnut oil, but they had a decrease in glands with tumors per mouse. This was a large study that theorized a graded dietary pattern that positively weighed plant foods and negatively weighed animal foods. This is one of the largest ones that are out there. Researchers studied that the association of overall plant-based diets and healthful and unhealthful versions of the plant-based diets with type 2 diabetes and the incidence in 3 large prospective cohort studies within the United States. The researchers hypothesized that plant-based diets would be inversely associated with type 2 diabetes risk. So they used patients from the nurse health study on 2 separate time frames and the health professional follow-up study. Look how many patients that they used. They used a ton. So the dietary data that they collected was over 2 to 4 years using a questionnaire. These were Adventists, which I thought was interesting. They created an overall plant-based food index where they had positive scores for healthy plant-based foods, and animal-based foods were assigned reverse scores. Additional healthier health foods, plant foods, they received positive scores, and animal foods received reverse scores. So they had healthier plant-based foods, and just the animal-based foods had just reverse scores. So what they concluded was that plant-based diets, especially when rich in high-quality plant foods, are associated with substantially lowering the risk of type 2 diabetes. It supports current recommendations to shift diets that are rich in healthy plant foods with lower intake of less healthy plant foods and animal foods. This also supports the dietary guidelines for 2020. 2 other studies that I have on here are I know this shocks you, based on plant foods and why these are healthy for you and decreasing cardiovascular disease and diabetes. The first one is food-based dietary patterns and chronic disease prevention. It was based for chronic disease risk, and it highlighted fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and fish with lower consumption of red and processed meats and sugary sweetened drinks. Showed that higher consumption of nuts, legumes, vegetable oils, fermented dairy products, and coffee are further likely to offer benefit, and it had evidence based off of prospective observational and interventional studies.
Another study found evidence through a prospective study to indicate that plant-based diets tend to be lower in saturated fatty acids and higher in unsaturated fatty acids with a better overall fat profile. Additionally, plant-based diets tend to have a high fiber content, and these characteristics of plant-based diets may be central to the benefit have been identified in relation to the development of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and obesity. So there's a theme here. The more plant-based food we eat, the better that we are about identifying cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and obesity. So the last study that I have on here is from Tonstad, Nathan, Oda, and Fraser. And these researchers investigated whether the risk of hypothyroidism was related to vegetarian diets compared to omnivore diets. This was an Adventist Health Study, Adventist Health Study 2, and it was based off of questionnaires. So they studied vegans versus omnivore diets, and they found that it tended to be associated with a reduced risk, while a lacto-ovo diet was associated with increased risk. So in the incident study, female gender, white ethnicity, higher education, and BMI were predictors of hypothyroidism. So just think about that for a minute. Following a vegan diet tended to be predictive. So in conclusion, a vegan diet tended to be associated with higher, not lower risk of hypothyroidism. And I thought about the predictors on this for a minute, and I thought a female gender, white, higher educated, and BMI. I have hypothyroidism. It's just something to think about. With the exception of lacto-ovo vegetarian diet, findings in the prevalence study, vegetarian diets were not linked to increased risk of hypothyroidism. But vegan diets, which may be likely due to the lack of iodine, they were completely excluded of animal products. That's why they think that they were more protected. So some guidelines for a plant-based diet, tips for success. These are personal and also found in research. Go slow and don't expect perfection of yourself or your clients. You want to look for some convenience shopped and plant-based products, because the more accessible it is, the more you're gonna be successful at what you do. You want to try some new recipes, because if you're new to this lifestyle, it's going to get monotonous. Whole foods, just a lot of salad will not work for you, and your clients, and you're not going to stick to this diet. You want to ask a lot of questions. Get you a plant-based buddy. Ask them a lot of questions. You want to try to incorporate at least one of your meals a week into a meatless Monday. I found that to be a helpful tip. Something I found is that you don't have to be a vegan to eat a plant-based diet. Things you want to take into your practice would be ask questions when reviewing your patient's history about current dietary habits. You want to discuss treatment options when you offer diet as a practical choice with positive effects. Offer simple suggestions to start. Remember, when small changes are made, they lead to big results. You want to maintain that plan, and you want to follow up with your clients. And you want to offer some support, so contact an education and nutrition expert for them. And here are my references.